Mighty Number 9!
Mighty Number 9 is one of the most interesting games ever made, because it's a landmark title in the history of indie games and a pivotal moment for the Mega Man series. But what is interesting about this is how it is those things for good and bad reasons. Today, this game is an often forgotten failure that soared when it was revealed only to crash and burn upon release, forever tarnishing the legacy of Keiji Inafune, the man who was once celebrated as one of the best creators in the gaming industry, particularly for his work on the Mega Man series. This game was the beginning of the curtain being pulled back on his career. I think that's all really important context to the Mega Man series. So it was a no-brainer for me to cover this game between Mega Man 10 and Mega Man 11. But since this is a Mega Man retrospective, this is mostly going to be a video on the history of this game, the timeline of its failure, and how that impacted Mega Man. This isn't really a deep dive into Mighty Number 9's gameplay. That's not really as interesting of a subject to me. But how does such an unsuspecting game carry such baggage with it? And what does it have to do with Mega Man? Well, I'm glad you didn't ask. Because to answer that question, we need to travel back in time. Mega Man 10 was released for 7th gen consoles in 2010. What nobody knew at the time was that this was to be the last Mega Man game for almost a decade. Keiji Inafune was an illustrator for the early Mega Man games and was a key figure in their development. Into the late 90s and 2000s, he became the series producer, having had his hands in the kitchen for basically every Mega Man game ever made, despite not being the lead designer or anything like that. He was widely considered the creator by many, since he was the public face of the series for so much of its history, even though Mega Man 1 was directed by a man named Akira Kitamura. Not that I'm trying to downplay Inafune's involvement, I'm just trying to make sure the facts are straight. Anyway, after Mega Man 10, Inafune resigned from his position at Capcom, claiming there were no more steps for him to climb with the company. This dealt a body blow to the Mega Man IP. When Mega Man 10 released, numerous games were in development, like a 2.5D platformer based on Mega Man 2 with stage creation elements for PS3 and 360 called Mega Man Universe. And of course, Mega Man Legends 3, the long-awaited sequel to Legends 2, which ended on a cliffhanger back in 2000. There were plenty of other Mega Man games in development then, like an FPS Maverick Hunter reboot of the Mega Man X series, but the bottom line is, Capcom cancelled all of these games. I'm not going to say it was purely retaliation against Inafune, but I'm sure that was a part of it. I mean, he was one of the biggest advocates for the Mega Man series and why it was getting so many games back in the 2000s. There were over 40 Mega Man releases from 2000 to 2010, and it stopped dead after Mega Man 10. I think another reason for that is because this was a time where Capcom was shifting their priorities to focus on maximizing profit above all else, including the integration of on-disc DLC for Marvel vs. Capcom 3, turning Resident Evil into a Call of Duty-like game and handing Devil May Cry over to Western developers. In this mission to make a lot of money, Mega Man just didn't really have a place anymore because the series' model was to make games for low cost and get a low return but enough to make back what was spent on it. But the diminishing returns set in and they put the series on ice. To make matters worse, Capcom got on the bad side of the Mega Man fanbase by saying a lack of fan support is why a highly requested game like Legends 3 was getting canned. Even though they probably meant the sales wouldn't have been very good given the series' track record, but that's not the kind of thing you say when you want fans on your side. But this is what started the original Mega Man drought, when the franchise went from multiple games a year to none. I can't speak from experience, since I wasn't a Mega Man fan until 2015, but many fans don't remember this time fondly, as each passing year made it seem like all hope was lost, until we reached the year 2013. Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS was officially revealed at E3. One of the game's major newcomers was Mega Man. Even as someone who hadn't played any of these games at the time, this was a hype trailer, since all my favorite YouTubers back then made me well aware of the series and its status at the time. This reveal brought so much life back to the fanbase, but that was an aside. The other development that lit a fire in the fanbase also happened in 2013. After Inafune left Capcom, he formed his own company called Concept, free to make whatever games he would like to make. But he couldn't do it alone. On a panel at PAX 2013, he unveiled his new project, Mighty Number 9, a game that was clearly inspired by Mega Man. But since Inafune didn't work for Capcom anymore, a company that didn't want to make Mega Man, he made a new IP based on the same design principles. But what was so special about this game was it being a Kickstarter. The game was funded by the fans giving money to the project. The projected budget to make the game was just shy of $1 million, but in record time, the game blew up to an impressive $4 million raised by the fans to see this project come to light. motivated by a staggering amount of stretch goals. If the game reached certain budget amounts, we'd get ports to every console like PS3, PS4, 360, Xbox One, Wii U, PC, Mac, Linux, 3DS, and Vita. A documentary about how this game came to be, it'd have an art book, a strategy guide, online multiplayer, really everything in the kitchen sink was promised. There was no gameplay or tech demo of any kind, but it was promised to be an authentic throwback to the Mega Man series, only done for the new age. Alongside beautiful concept art with Inafune's art style showing off the character, Beck. This Kickstarter sent shockwaves through the independent game scene. Indie games really started taking off in the 2000s because making games in your basement was getting easier and easier every year. Plus, with the advent of digital storefronts, you didn't really need a publisher who could print discs of your games and get it in stores. But an indie game getting $4 million from crowdfunding? That was relatively new and pretty impressive. This led to other games following the same mold, creators breaking away from their industry jobs and recreating the games of their past with a new IP. Yooka-Laylee was an example of this, bringing back the Banjo-Kazooie series in a spiritual successor. Then Bloodstained Ritual of the Night was another one that was doing the same thing for the Castlevania series. The former of which came and went, but the latter I heard was pretty good. But I never played either one since I haven't played enough of their source material to be interested. But yeah, all this was inspired by the reveal of Mighty No. 9, a game set for release in 2015. But that powerful launch is where the good news ended. According to this source from Nathan Birch, during 2014 things were getting slightly shady. For example, Concept was asking fans for more money than was initially asked for bells and whistles like voice acting and DLC. People naturally wondering, we paid over 4 times what was asked for so we could get a Mega Man platformer. Who asked for voice acting and DLC? Why are we planning DLC for the first game in a new series? Just make the game good the first time. But then, despite criticism, the funds always appeared. Before it was announced that Concept had partnered with a company called Deep Silver to publish the game, because one of the stretch goals was a physical edition, so they needed someone for that distribution. Another bad sign of things to come was that in 2014, Mighty No. 9 the animated series was announced. Once more, the natural question was, why is valuable time and resources being devoted into turning this game into some big franchise? The game was backed, not because people wanted the next big cartoon media empire, but because they just wanted a new Mega Man game. But clearly, Keiji Inafune had desires for this game that extended far beyond just making a game for the hardcore Mega Man fans. As if its success was set in stone and now it was time to plan the next 10 steps. When in actuality, this game had a lot to prove. It had to be a good enough game to stand on its own and show that crowdfunding was a good idea and could carry a game like this. If the game was going to become a franchise, it had to win over a lot more people than just hardcore Mega Man fans. And it also requires the game being out and well received before you can even consider that kind of stuff. 2015 was when things really started going downhill for Mighty No. 9. As you may recall, one of the stretch goals was an online multiplayer mode, but this was proving pretty troublesome. Mighty No. 9 was owned by Concept, but they weren't developing the game. It was being made by Inti Creates, a studio of former Mega Man developers at Capcom that formed a new company in 1996. They've made a lot of games, but many of them were Mega Man titles. Inti Creates developed the Mega Man Zero series in the Game Boy Advance and the Mega Man ZX games in the Nintendo DS. And they were also responsible for Mega Man 9 and Mega Man 10, so they were basically the perfect people to make a new game like Mighty No. 9. And while they said the campaign was basically complete in 2015, they were struggling with the online multiplayer and making it work. You might recall from my Mega Man 10 video that this was a key feature they wanted to implement into that game, but couldn't get it working and scrapped it. I said that probably would have given Mega Man 10 more of an identity than it had. However, I'm glad it got cut because it was disastrous for the development of Mighty No. 9 and caused the first delay. Originally set for a spring 2015 release, the game was pushed to the fall. Fans and backers were now upset because nobody even wanted online multiplayer that badly, they just wanted the game. And now that we saw the gameplay, it didn't really live up to the concept art as it used a generic 2.5D graphical style that looked like dog shit at the time and still does. In the summer of 2015, it gets astronomically worse as Inafune and Concept create another Kickstarter game. This one is called Red Ash: The Indelible Legend. It's a spiritual successor to the Mega Man Legends series, but there were numerous problems with this. First was that you can't really scratch the itch of Mega Man Legends with a spiritual successor. People wanted Legend 3 mostly because of the cliffhanger of Legends 2. Classic Mega Man can get a spiritual successor and be mostly the same because it's not story-based to begin with, when the plot and characters of the Legends series was one of its biggest draws. But then, the main issue here was, why are we crowdfunding another game before the first one you ever made is even released? That makes no sense unless you just don't have a lot of respect for your audience. In making the first crowdfunder, Inafune was cashing out all the goodwill he had by directly asking for our money. People were fine with this. All he needed to do was produce a sick game and people would be happy, and his reputation would remain likely untouched. But when you do that and then ask us to fund another game without proving you can make good on your promises for the other one we already funded, that's just bullshit. The game didn't reach its Kickstarter goal, but then out of nowhere, it was announced that a company called Fuse picked up the tab and that the game was going to be made after all, making the whole crowdfunder seem really suspicious. But then the game went radio silent and was cancelled after reports of mismanagement. To make matters worse, Mighty No. 9 was then delayed again to early 2016. At this point, even I had to get in on the action of critiquing this saga. In case you don't know, I started making YouTube videos in late 2015. My first review was on the first Sly Cooper on December 31st of 2015. But my first video was on November 8th of 2015. My first 8 videos was just me talking into the laptop mic with no script and no visual beside low-res pictures of whatever I was discussing. My 4th ever video was a rant about Mighty No. 9 and their shady practices.
I don't even know what the fuck was going on. It just seemed like a bunch of nonsense.
Just wanted to share that little tidbit of historical information because it was one of my earliest videos and I'm pretty sure it was one of the fastest growing videos I had done at the time. I think it had gotten like at least 20 views on the first day. I just find that funny in hindsight. It goes to show, even at the beginning, this channel was almost always locked in with the Mega Man series. But speaking of Mega Man, Capcom low-key stole the thunder from this mess of a game in 2015 as well. The game whose whole appeal was simply being Mega Man at home. Mega Man appeared in Smash Bros. In 2014, like I said, and then Capcom puts out the Mega Man Legacy Collection on PS4, PC, and Xbox One and 3DS. The collection that contained Mega Man 1 through 6. This was the beginning of their revival of the IP. They must have seen the response to Smash Bros. And how much money was generated for Mighty No. 9 and was like, fuck it, we've got such a big backlog of Mega Man games, might as well cash in. So the Mighty No. 9 ship was sinking fast. But now, we get to 2016, and yes, it does get worse. First, the game was delayed again to spring 2016, and then was later delayed again to summer 2016. Online multiplayer issues were cited once more, but then blame apparently rested on the game being made on Unreal Engine 3, which was super outdated, and they had difficulties making ports of the game to a dozen consoles like they promised at the beginning. And didn't even do them all, like there was no Vita version ever released of this. But after almost 3 years of drama, the game finally came out, and it was a PR nightmare. All thanks to this trailer put out by Deep Silver.
And make the bad guys cry like an anime fan on prom night.
I'll admit, when I first saw this, I thought that was a funny line in its own merits, because, I don't watch anime, but mocking anime fans is probably not the wisest move when you're promoting a Mega Man clone. A series that has been inspired by it from its very inception, and whose hardcore fans no doubt watch a lot of it. Like, are you trying to turn everyone against you? It was even to the point where the developers of the game complained about the trailer. But said trailer was also a meme because of the mediocre visuals, with the infamous pizza explosions. To cap all of it off, the game launched in a bad state. Critics thought the game was pretty mediocre, a clone of Mega Man that doesn't do anything exciting or new and didn't meet expectations. And then the Wii U version was a mess. Digital Foundry's analysis showed it had an uncapped frame rate and would rapidly fall between 40 and 20 FPS with long load screens. To cap it all off, Keiji Inafune was on a livestream and owned up to the game and said it was all on him. But then the translator, Ben Judd, translated it and then said this.
If things go well, there'll be sequels. Because I'll tell you what, I'm not getting my 2D side-scrolling fill. And at the end of the day, even if it's not perfect, it's better than nothing. At least that's my opinion.
People mistakenly thought "it's better than nothing" was a part of the translation, so people thought Inafune genuinely said that "at least it's better than nothing." Fun fact, Ben Judd also used to work at Capcom, and he was the guy who did the voice lines for Phoenix Wright on DS. The classic,
"Objection! Hold it! Take that!"
That was him. But that "better than nothing" line more or less became the tagline of the game as its release was turned into a meme, even though Inafune didn't actually say that. It got to the point where even the official Sonic social media was making fun of it. But to Mighty No. 9's slight defense, even looking past Sonic's back catalog of bad games like Sonic 06, Sega had literally just released Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric and was about to release Sonic Forces in 2017, so they can piss off for making fun of a bad indie game while making fuck-ass games like Forces, but this isn't a Sonic video. At the end of the day, it was finally out. So, what did I think of Mighty No. 9? Well, that's the neat part. I didn't. I never played the game. It's been almost a decade since it came out, but I never bothered with it. It just looked mid at absolute best. I got all I wanted out of this game by watching the drama unfold as it was coming out. I really had no interest in playing the game, despite my being thoroughly addicted to Mega Man by this point. And besides, I had sick reviews to make. That was my new thing at the time. And I guess that's still my thing. So yeah, I had to waste $20 to try the game out for this video, and hot take, I didn't enjoy my time with it. Again, I'm not here to do a deep dive. I was way more interested in this game's history and impact than the game itself, but to talk about it briefly, I thought the game was fine at first. The controls felt alright, and the new gimmick of dashing through enemies to get super powerful kills and some kind of a bonus was neat. But once you got into the main stages, I did not vibe with this game at all. I beat one stage and game overed on 6 other ones. I hit the setting to have 9 lives at default, and sometimes it really wasn't that much of a help. While I think the game feels mostly okay to play, I had some issues. Dashing in this works like a fusion of the classic Mega Man slide, where you get to use it to go through low ceilings, and the Mega Man X dash, where you can jump out of it with more speed. But the problem is, jumping around like that in Mega Man X worked because the wall jump allowed you to catch yourself if you hit one. In Mighty No. 9, Beck has a pitiful ledge grab, but no wall jump, so dash jumping or just regularly jumping can lead to your death. In fact, there was a lot of instant death in this game. Spikes were a hazard like usual, but then Beck gets atomized when he touches almost anything. Crumbling pillars, the road, these drills, fire, electricity, I just didn't have fun playing because I was dying all the time. In the underground level, I jumped down and was met with an impossible to escape death. What an idiot I was for my inability to predict that. And then, even when I was enjoying Counter-Strike's level where the boss is attacking you throughout the stage and you need to find him, I just got eviscerated in a nanosecond and saw the stage had no checkpoints. So throw that one in the bin. The bosses also gave me trouble. The ice boss had attacks that wiped out half my health in no time while I'm jumping around the ice. And Pyro was the absolute worst of what I played. It's a boss that telegraphs what it's going to do based on what annoying voice line the boss says, but then the cues will be overpowered by the dialogue from the side characters, and you can get killed from that over and over again. Dialogue that nobody was asking for. I don't know why so many platformers from this era felt like making sure every second was a cacophony of noise from every character, but in this game, it literally was a leading cause of death in this boss fight. Also, Pyro is such a weird copy of Flame Hyanard from Mega Man X7, even down to the exhaust pipes in his design, and their obsession with screaming about burning things. Of all things to rip off, Flame Hyanard, interesting choice. After a bit, I threw in the towel because I felt like I saw all I needed to see. I didn't like the game from what I played of it. I like to beat the games I review, so hence why I decided to focus more on the history here than how I felt about the game, because, you know, shock of all shocks, I didn't like it. Playing the game almost 10 years later was pretty interesting, though, because games like this really don't get made anymore. It was from a specific time period where a lot of retro franchises were abandoned by their owners, and the creators felt like bringing them back in some capacity. But in 2017 and onward, people's obsession with nostalgia went into overdrive, and now almost everything has come back in some form. Even games that are remembered unfavorably like Bubsy have returned from the dead. Because we not just live in an age of nostalgia, but also an age of irony too. Looking back at Mighty No. 9's whole Kickstarter saga and then playing the game though, it became crystal clear to me why this game didn't take off and become the huge franchise Inafune was hoping for. Because how could it? This game is creatively bankrupt, and most every game of its ilk also is. And that was basically the sales pitch. Hey, remember that game? Here's a carbon copy. I'd say most other games inspired by Mega Man had to do something original to stand out, but this game's whole premise is how unoriginal it is. You play as Beck, a robot in a series called The Mighty Numbers. Beck was created by a Dr. White alongside his sister Call. You know, see, Beck and Call, it's cute. But the other Mighty Numbers have gone haywire, and Beck needs to rise up to stop them by playing 8 levels and gaining the boss weapons and using them as weaknesses for other bosses. It's just a ripoff of Mega Man, down to the premise. Rock is a robot in a series of robot masters created by Dr. Light alongside his sister Roll, Rock and Roll. But the other robot masters go haywire, and Rock must step up and become Mega Man to save the day by playing the 6 stages and gaining the boss weapons and using them as weaknesses for other bosses. There's no creativity here. It's the same concept from almost 30 years prior, shamelessly copied and pasted. Regardless of how you might feel about the final product, that doesn't speak well of its chances as an original IP, especially in hindsight since Mega Man has returned from the dead. Like I said earlier, this game proved more than anything that people wanted Mega Man, so we get the first 10 numbered classic Mega Man games in 2 collections. Mega Man was in Smash 4 and Smash Ultimate, The Mega Man X games got re-released in a collection, as did the Zero, ZX, and Battle Network games. And most importantly, Mega Man 11 released in 2018, and it was way better than this. Spearheaded by people other than Inafune for a change. Before I talk about Mega Man 11 though, it's crazy to look back and think that this game, Mighty No. 9, killed the reputation of Inafune. After the game's failure, Concept was acquired by Level 5 and became one of their subsidiaries. And it's crazy to think that even after Mighty No. 9 came out and crashed and burned, it still had issues post-launch. For example, they said the 3DS and Vita ports were still coming, even into 2017. But then as of 2025, where selling 3DS games is literally impossible since they don't print those cartridges anymore, and the shop is closed, Mighty No. 9 is probably not coming out on there. So in early 2025, Amazon decided to cancel all the Mighty No. 9 3DS pre-orders. It only took them 9 years, but they did get around to it. And then more fuel to the fire is that the company that was meant to produce the physical rewards that backers paid for just said Concept never sent any assets over for it, so that's why they never got made. Just a total mess from top to bottom. I was just talking about Concept getting bought up by Level 5, so let's go back to talking about that. Since then, Inafune did an NFT game inspired by Mega Man, really not beating the creatively bankrupt one-trick pony accusations here. And then, just recently, he's left the company entirely. A man once remembered as the face of the Mega Man series has quietly slipped out of the public eye completely as people give more credit to the individual people who brought the Mega Man series to life over the decades, and not just the one dude who didn't even create it to begin with. But that's all I really have to say on this game. I thought my classic Mega Man retrospective would be incomplete without a detour to explain the gap between Mega Man 10 and Mega Man 11, and that's what this video is for. But next, it's time for Mega Man 11. I can't believe we've reached this point, but we're almost done with classic Mega Man, so I hope you folks are looking forward to that because it's coming up next. In the meantime, I'll close the video by saying what I always do. If you made it this far into the video, I thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.